Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Dr. Dave Preble. Um, Dr. Dave you're a dentist and an attorney, right?
Right. Although I like to think that I always stayed on the light side of that because I never actually practiced law, although I practiced dentistry for over 20 years. So.
Gotcha. Dr. Preble is the Chief Strategy Officer for the American Dental Association, also the Chief Science Officer for the ADA, and you are now an interim CEO of the ADA's Science Research Institute, right?
Right. And both that and the chief science officer are interim positions until we hire a new one.
Okay, great. Um, you know, um, Dr. Ray Komiya and I were discussing different things in an earlier interview. And when this topic that we were discussing today, the modifiers to the current code system came up, he basically punted to you and said, Bob, I'm going to have someone who knows more about this discussing it. And I really appreciated it because I believe transparency is the key to a lot of the issues that we talk about in dentistry these days. I had never heard of this. A couple of members brought it up into the group. And the first thought that we have is that, oh my God, more work for us, going to cost us more. Who's going to benefit but the insurance companies? And we all know the myth, and they're saying, I'm sure you've heard of it, oh, the ADA and the insurance companies are polluting against us. My job here is to make sure everybody's informed properly, and then they can make a decision. Is this good for us? Is this bad for us? So the first thing I want to do, I want you to first of all take a couple of minutes, talk about this. And what are these modifiers? Give us an introduction to it, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. And so, first, let me just go ahead and state categorically that transparency helps us and me also. I mean, we don't have anything to hide. There's not some conspiracy of the ADA to work with the third-party payers against the profession. I mean, it's always been just the opposite. But that being said, the idea of enhancing the CDT code is happening because everyone realizes there's a huge transformation in how we record keep in dentistry. Electronic dental records are evolving, and the way that we need and use data is evolving. And the CDT is old. I mean, its structure is old, and it's not going to be satisfactory to satisfy the needs of the emerging data needs of the profession, both to record and report their procedures. And with other things, the diagnosis is not going to be in the procedure code set. That's in Snowdent. We've been working on that for 20 years and have it finally at a place where we like it. So I mean, this whole idea of enhancing the code set to satisfy the needs of the profession to report and record is what's behind it. As far as this idea about modifiers is concerned, that is only one avenue that the Council on Dental Benefit Programs is looking at to enhance the code set, and nothing has been decided yet. What we're talking about leaks out, and it kind of seems like it's a fait accompli that we've already done it. That's not the case. We're trying to be very, very thoughtful about this. Have a request for comment that went out that with lots of comments, and a lot of the comments are what you could be expecting. That, oh, this is going to cost us a lot of money. Any implementation of change costs money. It's a lot of time and everything else. And we listen to that. It's not something that we just disregard. The ADA doesn't blithely go down the road yelling "yeehaw" as we sell the profession down the river. Being very thoughtful about this, there is some information about what are exactly going to be the demands and the needs of a code set like CDT that we don't know yet. So we're not rushing. into anything, and decisions haven't been made. Being very, very thoughtful about this. And that's that's the general background. I mean, I'm sure that there's some more specific questions that you have, but that's the basic idea.
So the basic answer to the first question is that this is not a sure thing yet. It hasn't been decided, correct? Or is it still being debated,
Correct.
basically? And
it's not only still being debated, we're still collecting information on what the needs of either government agencies or the data registry or thing. What are the real needs that are going to be satisfied by an enhanced CDT code? Until you have that, you really shouldn't be making decisions about which way to go, because you'd be going blind.
Right. And I know there was a listening tour that the ADA had announced, and that is over now. Are there going to be any more opportunities for feedback from the dental community?
Sure. Like I said, as we get more information and we start to hone down into what this would or should really look like to satisfy those needs of the next wave of the CDT, then we will do that again. We will ask input, because when there's no way that dentists can know everything that the inner circle of the Council on Dental Benefit Programs knows, and they need that information. And outlets like yours, I mean, we really appreciate coming on your show, because outlets like this help disseminate the real true information instead of the rumor mill. And that doesn't help anybody. We get the information out, and once we have more information to put out, it will ask for more input, because that input will it'll be colored by the new information.
Great. One of the things that someone brought up, these questions were brought on by a few of our doctors. Who initiated this CD coding project? Was this something that the ADA started? Is this a new regulation coming down the pike from the government, from the Medicaid? How did this come about even?
Yeah, it's not about a regulation. It is about protecting dentists' interests, but it's not about a regulation. So as the needs for a code set evolve, the CDT has a unique position in that it's the only HIPAA-approved standard for electronic claims reporting procedures. But along with that position comes a responsibility to make sure that the code is maintained in a way that satisfies the needs of the community, and that community includes CMS and third-party payers and of course the profession itself. So although it's not a regulation that's causing this, it is that we either advance the code into whatever that future may be, and we don't know what that looks like yet, but whatever that would be, or we open the door to a completely different code set that would satisfy those needs, supplanting the CDT, which would be incredibly more disruptive to dentists and the profession than modifying the CDT to satisfy those needs. So yeah, it was the ADA that thought, we have to think proactively about this. We can't wait until another code set comes and says, well, CDT didn't want to change, so we can do it better, adopt us as instead of CDT. We don't want to wait for that.
Has this happened anywhere else? Has this happened in other health professions, that somebody has come up and changed the codes and gotten rid of the old one, that this was a concern for the ADA?
Well, that has been something that has challenged the CDT in the past. I mean, we've fought off those challenges, but it has happened that we've actually been challenged in the past. It's been years now since then. But yes, there are other code sets that are competing internationally. And again, we have a tendency to think within America, because it's the American Dental Association, but internationally there are code sets that have been introduced that are different than, for instance, your CPT or something else that's used in the medical world. Not so much in dental, but even the CDT isn't really international at this point. Although, to tell you the truth, if we did this right, and again, we don't know what right looks like just yet, but if we did this right, potentially the CDT could even be an international code set.
So this was initiated by the ADA to proactively try to, again, I'm trying to assume this from what I've heard from you, to try to protect dentists, meaning that if we create this code system ourselves, we have more input rather than another entity coming in and say, look, this is a better system. Is that what I'm hearing?
You said it exactly right.
Okay. And I know we touched on this a little bit. I'm sure this is going to be a major factor debating this within the ADA and within the members. The cost, the financial impact it can have on individual dentists like myself, small offices. There's going to be costs for training staff. How does this work with practice management software? Are you guys working with them to incorporate that?
Well, obviously, I'll take the latter part first. We have to be working with them. We don't necessarily have to let the practice management software run the show, because they don't want to implement costly changes into their software until they have to. It's just the way it is. But we do have to take into account how difficult it will be for them and to help them manage that, because that's part of the whole community. The practice management software, the third-party payer industry, the dentist, they all work together to make these things actually work. As far as the cost is concerned, of course, we're concerned about that. Again, the ADA is really here for dentists, for our members. I mean, that's what we're here for. Anything that's going to be disruptive and that disruption that causes extra cost, we have to take into consideration. It can't be the only consideration. I mean, if their change always has a cost. And, if the change and the necessity for change and the value of that change outweighs the cost, then you do it. I mean, this has happened to us throughout the history of the ADA. I mean, back in the early 80s when we just, as a profession decided to go into universal precautions, there was an added cost to that. And we don't even think twice about it now. And actually during the COVID pandemic, that served us very well. The fact that we were already used to things that, that protected us. And there've been other changes that, we could cite, but of course, change always has a cost. We just have to balance, one, how to mitigate that cost, how to make it as easy and as little cost as possible. And balance, is the change of enough value that it's worth the cost? Of course, that's part of the evaluation.
Yeah, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on, but people listening to this are going to think, yeah, it's nice to say that you're thinking about the cost, but what are you doing? I want transparency, not me as a dentist, as a community. A dentist is going to say, I want the transparency. I want to see how this processes work. I think Ray Comia and I discussed this, that the ADA has a communication issue, that you guys can't communicate clearly with not just members, non-members, people who look up to you and say, you are the leader. You need to take the lead on this, affecting local organizations, such as state organizations and things like that. So it's great to hear this from you, and I appreciate it. But I do want to see the ADA do things a little bit more transparent and more vocal, and use today's technology to basically inform members.
I thought that's what we're doing right now.
Excellent. Touche. Another question that was brought up that is a hot topic these days. I'm a techie guy. Everybody knows about all this information collecting. Some of the members are concerned that this appears to be collecting a lot of information. And it becomes a data aggregate. And in today's world, everything is given to you for free because you're the consumer. As a consumer, you're the product, and you're basically your information is being sold. How is this data being aggregated? Would this generate income for anyone? Is it going to be sold? Is it the ADA who's going to benefit? Is it the insurance companies? Would it be a third-party company benefiting from this? Is this really helping patient care, or is this generating income for someone like Google?
Right. Let's talk about that. I think we have to separate the role a terminology like the CDT has and the data aggregation itself. They're obviously inextricably linked, but the terminology needing to advance or evolve to satisfy the needs of the profession is one thing. It's not being done specifically for a data aggregation purpose. It's being used for the purpose that we've already described. Will that data be more valuable at some point? Sure. I mean, we do have launched a data registry, and that data registry, for those practices that are involved in the data registry, gain a ton of information from it. I mean, they have these dashboards that they can pull down that give them, I'm not even equipped to talk about that. That's a whole nother show. But the data registry provides all sorts of information to practices that is very valuable to them. And yes, enhanced, information that goes into that can only be better. And that does work for the benefit of patient care. That's the whole idea of the data registry, is to give some meat to the bones of how do we measure and enhance the outcomes of what we do as dentists. But the enhancement of the CDT itself is not really designed for that purpose. I can't even imagine how this would somehow benefit financially the third-party payers. I mean, I just can't figure that out. Maybe they'll figure out, a way, but I don't see it. That's certainly not the purpose. The purpose is not, again, for a revenue generation in data sales by the ADA. We're not, lying when we say the purpose is exactly as we've outlined. It's to make sure that this code set continues to satisfy the needs of a practicing world that requires more than what the CDT can do right now. I can't even begin to imagine what 10 years down the line the future looks of data aggregation and how it could be used. But so I'm not going to speculate, but that's certainly not the purpose.
Yeah, but Dave, I'm in the world of technology, and again, I really appreciate your being here, but I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm going to challenge the ADA to take the lead to take care of this data, meaning that by just saying maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, that means we're not taking the lead. I want the ADA to basically consider this precious information that should only benefit the dental community and the patients, not necessarily generating income. People posting their pictures of their kids on Facebook never thought that was going to be beneficial to anyone. Advertisings are being sold based on a picture you post on Facebook. So my opinion here, and again, I'm going off the cuff here because of what I'm hearing, I'm continuing that conversation, is that I believe those who collect the information have the responsibility to protect it and have the responsibility to do no harm and use it for the betterment of the profession. I have no problems the ADA making billions of dollars, as long as those billions of dollars are made to better the profession and the lives of dentists.
Right. And so when it comes to the data registry that is the ADA's, we are doing that, and we are being more proactive. So, the ADA's data registry, of course, that's our information used specifically for benefiting patient care and dentists. But when anyone submits a claim to a third-party payer, we don't have control over what they're going to use that data for. And, in a Medicaid program, when they are the third-party payer, when the government is the third-party payer, they're going to aggregate that data, and they do it too. Even your software vendors, for your practice management software, they aggregate the data, and we don't have control over that. And that's why specifically I say that the terminology itself, although inextricably linked to data collection, is not really about the data collection itself, because it's going to be used by numerous other entities. I mean, that's the way of the world. So we'll have control over our own data aggregation, and we will use that for the benefit of the profession and the patients they serve. But we don't have absolute control over once it goes through a practice management software or to a third-party payer.
And now I'm going to go a little bit off tangent a little bit here, is that one of the reasons I believe we're having these discussions with the ADA is for me to help the ADA increase membership. We all know that many dentists are not joining the ADA or dropping out. And one of the things that bothers dentists about this is that I want the ADA to be the leader, okay? Although you don't have control of what the insurance companies do, I want the ADA to be a vocal proponent of dentists against these third parties, against whatever rule the government is going to set up that doesn't make sense for a small business owner. So I don't know if there's an answer to this or not, but this is the message I want the ADA to hear from dentists like myself. And this is not just from me. I hear this from many, many dentists on the internet, that we want the ADA to truly represent us. And although I think you guys do, it's just that we don't know about it. So communication and representation, I think, is key to all of this.
It is. And that's why, like I said, that's why I'm on your show. And that's why, we try to get the word out as much as we can, because we genuinely do that. And we are here to protect the profession. It's the foremost in our minds. I've been on staff now for over 17 years. And a lot of those years I was right in the dental benefits world, doing battle with the third-party payers about any number of issues. And that's one of the ways that we protect the profession, but it's not the only way. There's a lot of different ways that we seek to do nothing but protect the profession. It's hard to get that information out. Sending it out by email at this point is passé. We hardly that's not going to get it out. ADA news, I'm sorry, as much as I love the ADA and the ADA news, that's not it. There's social media, there's these things that we have to access, these kinds of things, to let dentists, and you said that right, it's both members and non-members, to let dentists know that this profession that they have invested in education, and the money that the education costs, and the sweat that goes into taking care of patients, we have invested in this profession. And the agency and the organization that protects that profession, whether it's legislative advocacy or regulatory advocacy or advocacy with third-party payers or any number of things, is the ADA. And it's hard to get that message out. It's again, I thank you for having a show like this. I thank the other outlets that do the same kind of a thing, because each has a little piece of that puzzle to try to get more information out about what the ADA is doing. Because I certainly think it's valuable. I wouldn't be working here for 17 years.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I also wanted to mention again that this not only will go into our group, which is dentist only and dental students, but it also will be on the YouTube channel, and it will be public so people see to make sure the message is out. Let's talk about insurance claim denial. Is this code modifier, do you think, going to be used for insurance companies to deny claims on a higher rate? This was something that was brought up, and it worries a lot of the dentists.
Yeah, no, it's not. I think that that's just a common misunderstanding of what a code set or a terminology is all about. The CDT, if you go even 10, 15, 20 years back, had actually more adjudication elements in it than it does now. The CDT should not be used to drive adjudication of claims one way or the other, whether it be denials or approvals. It should also not be used as driving a standard of care. You shouldn't have in a code set that this procedure can only be done this particular way, even if the idea is because that's the standard of care. The code set should just describe what the dentist has done and let the professional judgment of the dentist drive how that's done and why it's done and things like that. The terminology set isn't geared towards actually assisting denials of claims or abetting denial or claims, the approval of claims. It just shouldn't be. That's not what it's all about. And certainly this enhancement, there's no way that it's going to do that.
I mean, it's again, of course, everybody that's the ideal answer, and I like it. I like it to be that way, but we know it's happening in medicine. We know already it's happening in dentistry. Some codes are denied based on the code, So again, I encourage the ADA in debating this to make sure it's made clear to third parties that this is just an explanation. Now, having said that, when I first heard about this, Dave, I was like, this is not such a bad idea. Like, I do a one surface filling that takes me 15 minutes to do, and then I'll do a one surface filling that I'm still digging after 45 minutes. Why are those two coded the same exact way? Well, what is the logic behind that? Do you think this would solve problems like that?
Potentially, again, because we haven't really come to a conclusion about what this will look like yet. I can't answer that definitively. Certainly, we would want it to be that way, while at the same time guarding against it kind of going in the opposite direction. You don't want to have something that actually looks like it's a diminished adjudication of claim because of the way that the code set works. That's certainly not the idea, and it's something that is top of mind for us as you design something like this. But it's just this idea that even when you think about what you were saying before, that we see claims adjudication issues, it's not actually because of the code. I mean, it'll be that, okay, we're not going to benefit that code. That's not the code's fault. I mean, that's the third-party payers making a conscious decision that they can sell a plan that doesn't benefit that procedure, and so they're going to do it. It's not really the fault of the code set.
So the argument for that is that the code set is owned by the ADA. And doesn't the ADA have any influence? I don't want to say control. Doesn't have any influence. I mean, when these third-party companies sit at the table and discuss changes, does the ADA have any influence? Can they take the lead again? Again, I keep coming back to this word, taking the lead. I think one of the biggest problems the dentists have joining the ADA, that they feel like you're not taking the lead. I want more vocal ADA to show that they are trying to protect the the interest of the small business owners that run this country, such as dentists.
Right. And I get that. Again, I've spent a lot of my career at the ADA doing exactly that. So I can say, yes, we do take the lead in that. If the question is, why aren't you more effective? It's because we only have so much power. I mean, we don't have the power to actually control the way that the third-party payers run their business. And you'll talk about transparency. I'm very frank with dentists. If you will only join the ADA if they can actually control what the third-party payers do, then you're not going to join the ADA. I mean, it's just, that's not the only thing there is, and that's just not possible. It doesn't mean we don't try. It doesn't mean we don't advocate. It doesn't mean we don't negotiate. We don't negotiate fees. That's against the law. But we do try to get them to be reasonable with the way that they adjudicate claims. Some of that comes with our interaction with CMS and the government. People don't think about, a lot of dentists don't accept Medicaid, and there isn't a Medicare dental benefit, so they have no real association with CMS. But CMS, the way they do things, drives a lot, even in the private third-party payer world. And we do talk with CMS to make sure that they're looking at things in a reasonable way, in a thoughtful way, in a way that actually takes the dentist's position into account. Because you can't deliver care to patients, which is what all the government agencies, I assume, want, without appropriately reimbursing the providers of that care. It doesn't work. It's a system that will break at some point if you can't do that appropriately. Nobody's going to want to do that job. And they do listen to that. They don't always do it exactly the way we want them to, but anytime they do something, it is done with at least our influence. I guarantee that anytime CMS makes a decision, it's a better decision than it would have been had it not been for the ADA. You may not think it's the greatest decision. It may not even be good enough. I guarantee it's better than it would have been had it not been for the ADA.
Then, as a chief strategy officer, let's talk about all these on a regular basis of what you guys are exactly advocating. I mean, I'd love to hear you at one of these meetings advocating for dentists. I mean, that can, just like a good advertising agency, you should have a good advertising agency letting the ADA know, stress the things that you do. It's just beyond me that I don't know half of the stuff that you're telling me. And I'm sure many dentists are the same way, members and non-members. So I really appreciate you actually explaining these things, because it kind of makes me feel guilty that I'm not a member. And I promised Ray that I'm going to join for the first time in 12 years, because I want to put my mouth where my, my money where my mouth is, so we can help. But we will expect a little bit more transparency and a little bit more information coming out of the end. I'm offering this platform to you guys. I told Ray, you want to use it every week, use it every week. You want to use it once a quarter, it's all yours at no charge. Come on and let's help the profession.
I love that. And of course we love transparency, but it's more than that. We've never really lacked transparency. It's not like we want to hide anything. It's just, it's hard to get that information out in a way that people are able to digest it or want to digest it, or, actually impacts their brains. I mean, just the old way of putting out information isn't going to work anymore. It's just not going to work. It's things like this that are going to work. And I'm happy to be on this show about this topic. Let's figure out another topic that's a hot button issue. Let's continue to do it, because sure, I'm willing. I like to get the information out there. That only helps the profession when we get that information out there.
Excellent. And I agree. what is the projected timeline for these coding modifiers? Do you guys have what do they call in the software design, a map of how and when everything is going to be implemented?
No, and first let me take one step back, is that we haven't even decided that modifiers are the way to go yet. So there certainly is no timeline for modifiers, because we're not even sure that's the way to go. We do know that from a timeline standpoint, we'll be gathering information and looking at this again more critically at the November meeting of the Council on Dental Benefit Programs. Certainly nothing's going to be decided or happen before that. We do know that in the meantime, there have been a lot of indications from dentists that there are codes that are just not in the code set that they need. And we recommend and endorse the idea that dentists put forward code change requests to the Code Maintenance Committee. That's the consensus body, the standards consensus body that manages the CDT. Because if you can't record something and you can't report something the way that you want to because of the way that you do it, we have to let the CDT grow to do that, even while we're thinking about what an enhanced CDT might look like. Let's not, don't stop and say, oh, well, I'm not going to bother putting in these code change requests that I absolutely need, waiting for the enhanced CDT. Don't do that. Let's do our best to fix even the current CDT while we have it. And then when we finally decide what an enhanced CDT looks like, we'll be getting a lot more information out and asking for more feedback and working on that. Certainly no decisions are going to be made on that until before the CDBP meeting in November.
Well, then my next question is also answered that you basically nothing has been decided, because is this going to be a one change, or is it going to be phased in and different things? And those are still things that you guys are probably debating, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We talked about software providers
and by the way, Bob, if I can interrupt you just real quick, I can't even conceive how this would be something that would just be boom, one big change without, some sort of phase in. I just can't even conceive of how that would be.
Gotcha. And how about the diagnostic codes? Will they have modifiers? Is that part of the debate? Is that part of the decision making?
No, because the diagnostic code set, our diagnostic code set is called Snowdent. And it's a completely different hierarchy than the CDT. It's a much more complicated hierarchy, quite frankly, and it's very robust. I don't know how many codes are in it. Maybe it's 10,000. I'm not even sure, but it's a completely different thing. Modifiers wouldn't. It may already have some level of what you might consider to be a modifier in it, but it's a completely different hierarchy. It's not like a procedure code with a modifier. It's a completely different hierarchy, and you need it's not the kind of thing where you can look it up in a book. You need software in order to do it, and there are softwares that have already adopted Snowden.
Yeah, someone brought up the fact that the diagnosis codes are so varied from insurance company to insurance company. The definition of the crossbite can differ from a third party to the Medicaid. And there's going to be something done about unifying all these definitions and diagnosis?
Well, it certainly should. If Snowden is a named standard, and it should be used because it's been developed in a very open consensus-based way. It's not just one entity deciding this is the way to do it. This is a really, really good and robust code set, and it's been tested out in lots of environments like dental schools and things like that. So you do need it to be standardized. It should be standardized. That's the reason for standard terminologies. is so you don't have things all over the board, people using things. Now, again, for the third-party payer world, SNODEN's not really used for that directly. It's more indirectly, because ICD is the third-party payer diagnostic code set, and that is standardized. I mean, they already are standardized for that. The way that SNODEN ideally is used is, you get your information from your medical history and your evaluation, and you put that all in, and you come up with your diagnosis, and you use the code set in a click down manner in your software to develop that diagnosis. And with your medical history information and your diagnosis, your system should generate clinical decision support, not tell you what to do, but at least give you, this is the range of procedures that would fit with this medical history and this diagnosis. And then the dentist picks that. And when you put all of that together, the machine will spit out the ICD code onto the claim. That's the way it should work. It shouldn't be something that dentists and their staff have to labor over. It should actually be pretty seamless.
Yeah, unfortunately, according to some of our members, this is not the way it's working in the orthodontic world. This was a comment by one of our orthodontists. The other thing that was brought up is someone said that they had heard that these modifiers are going to be like a 3-digit modifier up to 4. Is still the plan? Is that accurate, or are these just rumors?
I haven't heard that. I have no idea. We haven't even decided if there's going to be modifiers yet. So I think that's, the cart is a few miles ahead of the horse at this point to decide what a modifier might look like.
And I'm hoping that the ADA again is taking the lead and putting in place a system to teach dentists and their staff. I'm sure there are going to be webinars and things like that. So we're not looking for another third party trying to charge us to teach us this. Is that in plan? Hopefully, that would be a benefit.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the most important charges that the ADA has, is anytime something, because we're saying this is an important change, it needs to happen, let's go through all that and we agree. Well, no matter what, change is going to have some disruption level, and we have an obligation to help mitigate that through education. Of course, it's the ADA has done that numerous times. If we're talking to dentists who are not members of the ADA, you may not even know about some of the education that we've done that has helped dentists. I mean, maybe recently, all the information that the ADA did about COVID-19 in the first year of that pandemic helped dentists a lot, as well as the fact that it was our advocacy that got offices open again as quickly as we could. So, I mean, we take that very seriously. It's an obligation that we have, especially if we're the ones that are saying, yes, this is important, we need to do this. Of course, we're going to take on the role of educating necessary.
That's great to hear. And I've always have said that even though I was not a member during COVID, I still received all the informational packages from you, and that was truly appreciated. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this now is that my faith is restored some point in the ADA, and I'm hoping that we can build on that. The last question I have is that I want to hear your opinion personally about the pros and cons of these modifiers. What do you think? Let's pretend that you're still practicing dentist. What is your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, so I'm going to call it the enhanced code set rather than modifiers, because again, we don't know if it's going to be modifiers or not. But at this point, I'm too much on the inside to see any other way. I mean, the issue of saying, no, we shouldn't do this at this point in time, in my opinion, is only born from a lack of knowledge. And that's what we're trying to cure today and in the future. There's no doubt about it that the needs of this code set are going to be different than what the CDT can satisfy right now. So we have to do this. The cons are, what is the disruption going to be? It's going to be less than a disruption of an entirely new code set that somebody else comes in to supplant the CDT. It's certainly going to be less than that, but there will be that. Will there be costs involved? There could be some costs involved even in your practice management software if they pass on costs to the dentist. Could be costs in the learning phase that we'll try to also mitigate and help with education of your office staff and everything else. Yeah, those are cons, but you asked my personal opinion. There's no way that those cons even come close to outweighing the pros. Now, again, we don't know what this is going to look like yet, but the idea that the CDT needs to be enhanced so it can satisfy the needs of the next generation of electronic dental records and claims processing, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to make a statement. I first want to put a disclaimer that this is not Dave's opinion and not an opinion of the ADA. This is just my opinion as an individual dentist, that from what I'm gathering, from whatever you're saying and what the members are saying, my gut feeling is that there is an outside source working actively to replace what we have and what we control. And I think, obviously you guys can't comment on this. I can, because I don't know anything and it's just a guess, that I believe that the government may want to take over. The government may want to come in and control everything. And this is a way to say, hey, we're going to take the lead and we're going to do this. Again, there is no factual basis in this statement I just made. This is just my opinion. And I'm hoping that if that's going to happen, my vote is for the ADA to be in charge rather than the insurance companies or somebody else. I don't want you to comment because I don't know if you can or not, but that's my opinion.
Well, I agree from the standpoint that whether there is that force moving or not, the ADA should be taking the lead. Because even if it's just to guard against that kind of a force happening.
Yeah, exactly. Dave, do you have anything else to add? I mean, I'm at the end of my questions, and I want to make sure that people know that this will be in the group and will be on our YouTube channel and will be shared in other Facebook groups for them to see. So I'm going to spread the word. If you have anything else to add, you're my guest. Go ahead.
No, I think we covered it pretty extensively, Bob. I'm looking forward to us deciding on the next topic.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining me, and hopefully we can meet again soon.
Great. Thanks, Bob.